Hello, this is Martin Gore from Depeche Mode.
Hi, this is Dave Gahan from Depeche Mode, and you are listening to
My Nerd World.
And welcome to it. I'm your host, Jon Justice, here for Depeche Mode, the podcast. Thank you so much for checking out the show once again. As always, if you want to email me, TalkShowNerd@gmail.com. And if you're enjoying this on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment there. I always love hearing from you, and we do have some listener feedback to get into later on in this week's episode. Things remain quiet from the Depeche Mode camp as Martin and Dave and the rest of the band to take a much-needed rest after the end of the Memento Mori tour. And we continue to sort of process the end of this era so far as we await the release of those fully produced tracks, potential box set, live release of the Memento Mori tour, and I set plans for the future relating to this podcast and line up guests as well. Speaking of guests, and I'll let you know when the episode is up, I joined a Tori Amos podcast this past week. Did an interview actually last weekend for that podcast. Had just a fantastic time on that show. Looking forward to being able to share that with you once it's released in the coming weeks. The reason for my appearance on the podcast was because they were highlighting artists that Tori Amos had covered, and specifically Depeche Mode, as she's done directly related to Enjoy the Silence, but really had a fun time sharing the fandom, sharing my fandom of Depeche Mode, while I got to hear from another group of fans of Tori Amos. Really was a good time, and again, I'm looking forward to being able to point you in the direction to go to listen to that interview. Hopefully, I did Depeche Mode fans proud. It was one of those moments where I felt like I was representing the Depeche Mode fandom. I'm like, oh man, I hope, one, I didn't screw up any of my details here, too, and I hope I didn't say anything that's going to annoy people. So there were a couple of moments where the host had asked me, too, what do fans think about this or this? And I'm like, listen, I'm not speaking for other fans. I'll speak for me. So we do have some items, news-related, to share on the show this week before we dive into your listener feedback. It's interesting to see articles pop up that I missed during the run-up to the release of Memento Mori, which is exactly what happened with this article that I found from Yahoo New Zealand. For some reason, it ended up popping up in this week's time search for Depeche Mode, and it's a story that I had not heard relating to the shocking passing of Andy Fletcher. We'll get into this in a moment. Also, an article that I held off on last week because of the AI Depeche Mode conversation relating to which band has the most sophisticated song lyrics of all time. I'll share that with you, and then we will dive into your listener feedback this week. So first, let's go ahead and take a trip around the world and back with a stop through New Zealand. So as I typically do, I do a internet search, news and otherwise, of the past week for Depeche Mode, just to see what's been released. And this popped up as a new article, but it's anything but. At the very end of the article, it mentions how Memento Mori would be coming out in March, and so this was clearly in the run-up to that, but I had never heard the story before. It's rather emotional, and I definitely wanted to share it with you on the podcast. Depeche Mode's Dave Gahan totally lost it and started sobbing uncontrollably at Andy Fletcher's funeral. The 60-year-old musician was stunned by the loss of his longtime bandmate, who died in May, age 60, after suffering an aortic dissection, and reveals he started sobbing at the memorial service when he and guitarist Martin Gore reunited with their former record label boss, Daniel Miller. Gahan told the newspaper he and Miller walked in with his wife, and Martin and I stood up and kind of fell into him. And he put his arm around us, and all of us were I was sobbing. It was just the three of us. I can't explain it, but that's when I totally lost it. He pointed it out when he met me and my band. I was a teenager, just about to turn 19. I thought about that. It's been 40-odd years. My entire adult life. The rocker went on to admit he briefly considered ending Depeche Mode after his friend's death, but he put the notion aside after a candid conversation with Gore. He explained, Martin and I had a conversation. I was just calling up to see how he was doing, and he was like, "We're moving on, right?" I said, "Yeah." I didn't miss a beat. Gore added, "I did question for a second whether it was a good idea to carry on with the schedule we had," he says. "But we were due to start the studio album 6 weeks after he died, and I wondered if we should put that back a little bit. But we decided it was probably best for us to focus on the album, on the music, something we know, something to take our minds off of Andy's death." Gore went on to insist the tragedy has brought the pair closer together. A lot of this we knew. It's now just the two of them working together. And he added, "There's nothing positive about it, Fletcher's death. But the good thing is that it brought me and Dave closer. We have to make decisions as the two of us, so we talk things out. We talk a lot more on the phone, even FaceTime sometimes. That's something we just never did before." Now, the latter half of that we knew quite a bit about. It was that first half and Andy's funeral and Dave losing it that I wasn't aware of. However, going back and reading what Martin Gore said and revisiting what these two individuals went through, I think all those questions come flooding back into my mind based off of the end of the tour episode a few weeks back. And that is, this, again, is a really unique circumstance that could really go either way. On the one hand, you almost have Martin and Dave entering a new era in losing Andy, being the last two remaining members, and almost discovering this friendship, a level of this friendship they didn't have before. And one could make the argument that because of that, perhaps it's more likely that the band will continue, Martin and Dave will continue. And I won't repeat all of, my thoughts on this from before. They kind of remain the same, but those comments, again, bring them back to light. Or you look at it the other direction, where it did, in the moment, go and provide an opportunity for these two men to find a new level to their relationship that absolutely contributed to this amazing album of Memento Mori, this incredible tour that they've just finished, and this entire era that we're still waiting for the end on in these final releases, in which case, if they were to call it quits now, it goes out on an absolute positive note. A nice little bow on this absolutely stunning, incredible career. I think you know which way I hope this goes, and I think you probably feel exactly the same way. If you're one of the individuals out there who hopes this is the end, listen, I'd love to hear from you and your thoughts on that. Certainly no judgment from me. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, but I have to imagine that most of us are hoping that we'll continue to hear more music and potentially even another tour, even though as time progresses, after this tour ends, that likelihood will become less and less and less, right? So again, as always, what do you think? TalkShowNerd@gmail.com, or if you are enjoying this on YouTube, you can leave me a comment there as well. You'll never guess which pop band has the most sophisticated song lyrics of all time. The Mirror's data analyzed various song lyrics and calculated how many years would have to be spent in education in order to understand them. A weird article, but I'll share it with you nonetheless. Depeche Mode have the most sophisticated lyrics out of any of the UK's best-selling bands. The 80s electronic band came out on top after the Mirror's data analyzed their lyrics, calculated how many years fans would need to spend in education to understand them. The average Depeche Mode song requires 10.3 years in education, the equivalent of a 15-year-old. Which I find interesting just because that was, a few years after I found the band, but I think at an age when a lot of us found the band. This was the higher than legendary UK music acts such as the Beatles, David Bowie, and Queen. One of Depeche Mode's most sophisticated songs, Macro. The opening lines of which, overflowing senses, heightened awareness, I hear my blood flow, I feel its caress. Whispering cosmos, talking right to me, unlimited, endless, God breathing through me. Elton John came in second place, followed by Dire Straits, Pet Shop Boys, and David Bowie. Robbie Williams was a surprise inclusion at 7th. For some reason, I just have the feeling, Matt, your brain is spinning right now. Friend of the show, I can just sense it. Each song was scored on the readability of its lyrics using the Coleman-Liao index and the SMOG index, two algorithms used to determine the difficulty of school texts. An average was taken of each song's score in both of these tests to fix on its final score before each artist was given an average score based on all of their lyrics. The least complex lyrics out of 6,093 was for ABC Freeform by the Eurythmics, which is just 26 letters of the alphabet spoken one after the other. So for an article that I didn't expect I was going to have that much fun with, I had a lot more fun with that than I thought. Oh, Matt, I can almost hear you hammering against the keyboard right now. I'm waiting that email to come to my inbox. All right, let's get to some of your listener feedback this week. And my apologies here on this. I think this came from Matt. I'm not 100% sure. Sometimes when I cut and paste over the listener feedback, I forget to include who wrote it. So this might be from Matt. Matt, if it's not from you and it's from somebody else, feel free to correct me. I'm sorry about that. Hello, John. Some thoughts coming to you in a fast fashion. There is no version of Depeche Mode's career arc that does not include a live whole album retrospective of Black Celebration, Violator, Songs of Faith and Devotion, and Ultra. Expect short arena tours wherein 2 full albums are played with encores of some notable hits. And wouldn't it be nice to hear Dangerous Live or Sea of Sin? Expect to mortgage your home and ransom some unborn children to fellow devotees in a nonstop sing-along. I need Depeche Mode AI. Actually, I know this didn't come from Matt because we have talks about AI. I need Depeche Mode AI music as much as I need Weird Al Yankovic doing DM parody songs. I actually think this came from Dave Fulton. Like Enjoy the Sandwich or Personal Pizza or Just Can't Buy My Lunch. In other words, if it happens, it will be amusing and distracting for a minute, but it will do little to impact my overall listening experience of the band. That being said, I kind of love Tacky more than Happy. The video is too fun. My favorite Canadian automation AI, AI Morissette, once asked, isn't it ironic? And it's not ironic that the music genre, once considered robot music in the 1980s, is now the subject of debate about authenticity. It's called synth music, as in synthetic. I think all that needs to happen now is for Kraftwerk to tour with banjos, washboards, and Rafe Hutter playing the spoons. Delicious. Can you say that like Dieter from Sprockets? Ah, gotcha. I was very surprised to hear from your French correspondent last week that they had a strong opinion about the worst song on Memento Mori. I think we all know Caroline's Monkey Wears the Clown Shoes on the album, whereas Never Let Me Go is a frenetic whirlwind of mixed emotions that harkens back to something to do and more than a party. B, the French are usually so shy and retiring when it comes to expressing their opinion. I kid. If it weren't for the French, our favorite band would be called Composition of Sound or No Romance in China. There should be a remix album called Postmortem, collecting Memento Mori remixes released for the Christmas 2024 market. That would be a stroke of brilliancy, in my opinion. And my apologies for my confusion over who did or didn't write that particular email, but thank you either way. James Rigby writes, I don't think it's wrong to like AI. To be honest, I used it this week to actually create an AI Depeche album I used with Udio, ChatGPT for the lyrics, and myself with editing the lyrics, adding lyrics, and doing my own lyrics for instrumentals, which I have entitled Memento Mori Volume 2, which I'm releasing on my channel tomorrow at 12 p.m. local time. I'll be completely honest, I don't know if he was kidding or not. Joan Zen Silly Stuff writes, although on a first listen, it made me think it was a treasure trove. Latter, my feeling changed. Many Depeche Mode elements, details, nuances put together in a song finally don't carry out a real DM experience. After several listening, the brainchild ends getting a cliche, a strange Frankenstein made of diverse parts that they don't bring along any reality. It's an experimento. It's really curious, but that's all there is relating to Depeche Mode AI. And lastly, Danielle Manette writes, first, I'm not here to say what is right or wrong when it comes to AI, to each their own, but I will tell you why I don't like it, and why I probably never will. It all comes down to the lyrical content, a bunch of key words strung together with no emotional resonance. It may be sounding like DM, but it doesn't feel like DM. AI has never longed or lusted or loved. It has never been alone or broken. It has never cared or fought for something. It certainly has never experienced addiction or come back from the dead. You can prompt pain and suffering in various tempos in the generator, and you will never get anything close to what they have created. Because it is lived, the greatest artists are the ones who pour their soul into their creation. And this is why we love this band so much. We can relate to the songs and feel united by the human experience. I won't even start with the production side of it. Okay, maybe I will. A song created in a few minutes or hours cannot be equal to one that's been born out of blood, sweat, and tears, worked and reworked by the whole team of creative minds until it matched their vision. I get the entertainment value of AI-inspired DM songs, but it's just not for me. So that was, for what it's worth, my 2 cents. Great commentary. Thank you to all the friends of the show for sharing. I want to add one little thing to that. And this is not this is just something that popped into my head that I thought was interesting. That very last little comment there, a song created in a few minutes or hours cannot equal one that has been born out of blood, sweat, and tears, worked and reworked by the whole team of creative minds until it matched their vision. I was immediately reminded of what happened during the creation of Black Celebration, where the band had spent all this time, as you just mentioned, blood, sweat, and tears, worked and reworked by the whole creative team behind Black Celebration for Stripped to be a single from the album, only to have the label in the U.S. pick But Not Tonight, a song created in the course of a few minutes or hours to be the single that they released in the United States. Now, this is completely taking away the AI side of things, but an interesting anecdote based off of your comments there and expressing the frustration that the band had at the time as to why they would go and use But Not Tonight as the single after all the work that they ended up doing on Stripped. Thanks to everybody this week who wrote in, keeping it relatively short, mostly because I'm kind of a busy man. I've got a lot going on, including updating the covers for my science fiction space opera series, EMBARK. Listen, if you like to read science fiction, I hope you'll support my Nerd World and Depeche Mode, the podcast. Treat yourself, a friend, or a family member with sci-fi. Set in the future where air and spaceflight culture is has replaced car culture. It is inspired in part by Depeche Mode. There are references about the band in the books. The lead character himself is a massive fan of Depeche Mode at a time in the future, 2172, when the music of the 80s through the 2000s is nostalgic and popular. After Earth faces its end, you can follow pilots Taft, Keitha, and their crew on a journey of survival across the galaxy as they fight for humanity's future among the stars. Don't miss this fantastic, fast-paced, and action-packed epic science fiction series. There are 7 books in all in the series. Go pick up book 1. You can get it in ebook. If you subscribe to Kindle Unlimited, it's available there. Hardcover, paperback, and audiobook. All 7 books are available in all of those formats. If you like science fiction, and you like it to be epic, filled with amazing technology, references to Depeche Mode, and music that I grew up with that you probably enjoy as well, with some romance and filled with action, EMBARK is perfect for you or your fellow sci-fi reader in your life. Written for adults, but it is great for ages 11 plus. I hope you'll go and pick up EMBARK Book 1 today at Amazon.com. Just search for Jon, Jon Justice, and EMBARK. Thank you so much for spending time with the podcast this week. I appreciate it. I hope wherever you are happy, you are healthy, and you are safe. I'll talk to you again next week. Bye.
Hello, this is Martin Gore from Depeche Mode.
Hi, this is Gahan from Depeche Mode, and you are listening to